Late last week, Iranian Air Defense General Reza Hajj claimed that Iran had been actively detecting American F-35s operating over the Persian Gulf. And as a result, there has been a flood of commenters and even some news outlets claiming that Iran has cracked the code to peering through the stealth of America's most advanced fifth-generation fighter. But is it true? Well, sorta, but not in any of the ways they'd have you believe. Let's talk about how Iran is actively leveraging misconceptions and confusion about what stealth is and how stealth works to advance this narrative. Let's start with the bottom line up front. There is a very big difference between detecting and targeting a stealth fighter, and stealth fighters are designed with this important distinction in mind. Now, among the aviation nerd community, it has long been well understood that stealth fighter designs are specifically oriented toward mitigating targeting via high-frequency radar arrays. In other words, stealth fighters are designed to be stealthy against the types of radar arrays that can guide a weapon into a target. However, design elements inherent to stealth fighters, like their standing vertical tail surfaces or their big gaping jet inlets, often produce a resonance that is detectable via low-frequency early warning radar. But there's a problem. These low-frequency arrays can't guide a weapon into a target. They don't produce the image fidelity needed to get what we call a weapons-grade lock. And as a result, stealth fighter designs are specifically made to mitigate detection specifically against only high-frequency arrays. Stealth bombers, on the other hand, are an exception. Stealth bombers don't need fighter-like aerobatic performance, and as a result, they can omit things like standing vertical tail surfaces or big open jet inlets. As a result, stealth bombers are very difficult to detect via low-frequency array and very difficult to target via high-frequency one, whereas stealth fighters compromise by being detectable via low-frequency array, but being very, very difficult to target. In other words, when stealth fighters are operating over your nation, you usually know that they're there, you just can't target them to shoot them down. When stealth bombers are operating over your nation, you may never even know they were there at all. Now, this is commonly understood among military planners and aviation nerds, but because the general public doesn't have a real clear understanding of how stealth designs interact with different frequency radar arrays, nations like China, Iran, and Russia often leverage this confusion, this misconception, to advance narratives like the idea that they've managed to poke a hole through the stealth of America's most advanced fifth-generation fighter. The truth is, America is well aware of the fact that these nations sure ought to be able to detect the presence of their stealth fighters. America just also knows that they can't target them, and that is a very important distinction. And as one final parting shot that's important for context, it's also really important to understand what a Lunenburg lens is. Lunenburg lenses are radar reflectors that aren't always easy to spot with the naked eye when an F-35 or an F-22 flies by, but they produce such a prominent radar return that it renders these aircraft very detectable via high and low frequency radar arrays. There's a number of reasons why you might fly with Lunenburg lenses on. One is just making sure that air traffic controllers and other aircraft are well aware of your presence when operating in a non-stealthy or tactical situation. But another reason might be to advertise your presence to adversary forces, and that's exactly what this F-35 deployment to the Middle East is all about. The United States announced that they'd be deploying more than a dozen F-35s to the Middle East more than a month ago as an intentional message toward Russia over Syria and Iran over the Persian Gulf. And if F-35s have been operating in the area with Lunenburg lenses on, that would make a great deal of sense. Not only would it advertise to these nations that F-35s are now in theater, but it would also make it impossible to try to discern what their actual radar return may be, so that if they were to pull these lenses off the aircraft, they'd have the best chance at operating without being detected at all. So, at the end of the day, when you see a nation like Iran or China or Russia claim to detect stealth fighters, you should understand that that's exactly what we'd expect they could do. That comes as no surprise to anyone who's well informed about military aviation. You won't see them claim, however, that they can target them, because that's what they were designed to be difficult to do. Ultimately, these Iranian claims are little different than when Russia leveraged public confusion about what modern hypersonic weapons are to say that their air-launched ballistic missile, the KH-47M2 Kinzhal, was a modern hypersonic missile. These nations are relying on the public to be too poorly informed to see through their disinformation. And the best way to combat disinformation is by reading beyond the headline and doing a bit of research. And if you're still watching this, full disclosure, I appreciate you relying on me to help out with that.